Well, now on ITV1, on the eve of the new Premiership football season, reporter Mark Jordan takes an in-depth look at the business career of Manchester United's controversial owner Malcolm Glazer in our Tonight special.
Tonight, the man who bought United.
If you want to draw a lesson from our experience, get the quid from Malcolm Glazer up front. Well, you're playing with a pro, so be on guard.
How the road to riches led to Old Trafford.
He's not over there because he's a big soccer fan. He's over there because there's a real opportunity to make money. And son of a gun, there it is in Manchester, and he's going to get it.
Has the tycoon finally met his match?
They would not understand how the supporters feel when they get knocked out of a competition. These are the people that the club really belongs to. But the Glazers won't understand that at all because they're not football people. They're business people.
Good evening. This weekend sees the start of the new Premiership football season. But whatever takes place on the pitch over the next 10 months is unlikely to be as dramatic as this summer's off-the-field events at Old Trafford, home of Britain's biggest club. 2 months ago, Manchester United came under the control of the American billionaire Malcolm Glazer, a takeover that saddled the club with millions of pounds of debt and caused outrage among its huge fan base. The Glazer family say they're determined to ride out the protests and bring success and trophies to Manchester United. But critics of the tycoon say his previous business record suggests that he's concerned only with profit. Mark Jordan has been investigating that record and finding out more about British football's most controversial figure.
It's a football club like no other. More fans, more money, and a glorious history.
And there is Matt Busby, tears in his eyes.
For decades, its supporters have chanted the names of legends.
McDougall to Charlton. Dowling, Best, and there it is, George Best.
Here's Cantona. He's done it. It's Beckham. It's fantastic.
But now there's only one name on the fans' lips, and hero worship is the last thing on their minds. This is what greeted Malcolm Glazer's sons when they visited Old Trafford in June. Facing this sort of anger, they had to exit in an armoured police van. Then, on Tuesday night this week, 3 of Glazer's sons returned to take a look at their latest acquisition. Glazer himself stayed away, but the new owner could have been in no doubt about the reception he can expect.
They are born Manchester United supporters, and some of them will never accept it. The Glazers will never ever understand our history, the feeling of supporting a club through thick and thin, good times, the bad times, because they're not football in people at all. They're only in it to treble their money or quadruple their money, whatever the case may be.
But are the fans right to fear a man known back in the States as the Leprechaun? To find out, I went to his hometown of Rochester in New York. It was here that Glazer grew up with his brother and 5 sisters, and where, after his father's death, he helped run the family's watch repair business at just 15.
He was a very, very hard worker, very industrious, very creative. He was very family-orientated, and he basically, after his father passed away, he supported his family. At the end of the school day, he'd go downtown to his father's store, jewelry store, and work in the store.
He was still a schoolboy.
Yeah, he was a schoolboy, and you know, he just took on the responsibilities of supporting all of his family.
Gradually, Glazer took over control of the business, expanding into property, and he worked obsessively.
Was he fun?
Fun? If you look at his yearbook, they The line under his name is muscles, which he had no muscles. He's a non-athletic kind of guy, and he was always working.
Did you ever get a sense that he liked sport, that he was passionate about sport?
No, not at all.
What did he like?
I think he liked doing what he was doing. He liked working and winning.
Glazer may have supported his family financially, but he didn't let them forget it. When his mother died in 1980, splitting $1 million inheritance between her 7 children, he believed it was his by right. His legal battles over the will sparked a continuing feud with his sisters, but he didn't seem to regret it.
When we asked him about this in 1992, he made it very clear that he was not apologetic, or he didn't feel he'd made a mistake in this dispute, that he wouldn't do anything differently. And that was a great insight. I mean, here's someone who had gone down a path that resulted in estrangement from virtually all of his family, yet he felt very confident and comfortable with it. On one occasion, while Malcolm was testifying in this dispute, he believed that court was in recess and that the court reporter wasn't really recording what he was saying. He said to his lawyer, "We've got to keep going until all the money is gone."
In other words, say his critics, he'd rather blow the entire inheritance on court fees than let his sisters have a single cent. As part of his business expansion, Glazer bought restaurants, nursing homes, and 15 trailer parks. And it was here he gained a reputation as a penny-pinching landlord. He increased rents without notice and introduced extra charges. $3 a month for babies and $5 for pets.
I don't remember him personally, but I remember his regime here.
And
yes.
What was it like?
High rent increases all the time. Overcharging. At one time they were charging us for pets. I was married at one time and I had a daughter, and they were charging me extra for my daughter living in here. My cat, they wanted to charge me extra for my cat. But I said no.
What was the grounds? Why did they want to charge you extra for a cat?
No idea. The cat was self-sufficient. He was an outdoor cat.
The residents brought in a lawyer to fight the charges. He worked for free. But the story of a rich landlord demanding extra for babies and even cats and dogs brought him national publicity.
This is a small community, and I was met by these folks, humble folks, who came in with a problem, and I thought I would be able to deal with it with a few phone calls, perhaps a meeting. And the next thing we knew, we're on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, and the media is coming down on us, and I think it really escalated to a point where it really didn't need to be.
Glazer eventually agreed to scrap the charges, but refused to refund residents cash. So they took him to court, and won. Glazer was forced to hand back their money.
It was, I think, the typical David and Goliath type of tale, if you will, with a Charles Dickens twist. It was fabulous. It was a vindication for the spirit, not for the pocketbook.
Glazer since sold his trailer parks, but the former landlord is not remembered with affection.
All he cares about is Malcolm Glazer.
See, we're trying to work out what's going to happen to Manchester United back in England.
I'd get him out of there as quick as I could if I was over there, one way or another.
Glazer displayed his ruthless streak in other business ventures. In the 1970s, he invested more than $20 million in American TV and radio stations and began cost-cutting immediately.
They took the station over at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The next morning, they had a meeting of department heads, and they started going over the list of departments that needed to be cut and personnel. And they came to the engineering department. They said, what about this person right here? They mentioned the person. And the manager said, well, he's worked here 28 years. They said, he's not worked here 28 years. He's only worked here a day for us. So, I mean, very heartless. He was totally business-oriented, and whoever got hurt, come what may, let it happen, you know?
So he was gone?
He was gone.
After 8 years, Don Nally lost his job too. But by then, he'd witnessed Glazer's extreme hands-on management style.
The phone call would come every day, maybe 2 or 3 a day. They want to know some nitpicking little thing. It got to the point where they would question every dollar that was spent. One time we had to buy some spray paint to spray out the logo on a panel truck that we traded in on a new one. 2 or 3 weeks later, they called me long distance from Rochester. Why did we spend $11.25 for spray paint? He's not interested in glamour. He was interested in whether or not it would make money, and the station made money, a lot of money.
During the 1980s, Glazer bought a stake in the work surface company Formica, then attempted a hostile takeover. He failed, but the share price soared. Glazer then sold his stake, walking away with a tidy profit. He did the same thing with the motorbike maker Harley-Davidson. But following one court injunction to block his takeover, the judge branded Glazer a snake in sheep's clothing.
There were several situations in the 1980s when he tried to acquire companies. Some he was successful and some he wasn't. He was paid money to go away, and that's where he got a nickname, as did many other people during the 1980s get this nickname or sort of get tagged as being green mailers.
Greenmailing, that's threatening to take over a company and then selling the shares back at a premium, is not illegal, but it's a practice many frown upon.
There's a lot of people who don't like green mailers.
Why?
Because they think that the intention is not really to add value. The intention is solely for the green mailer to make profit for him or herself. That's all.
Tom Ajami knows Glazer's tactics well. For 7 years, he led a team of lawyers fighting Glazer's various legal battles. But in 1999, they fell out when Glazer refused to pay his bill.
We did a tremendous amount of work for him, as he knew. And there are very, very high-profile and high-risk cases, including one where 2 of his senior executives were being accused and sued for insider trading, having inside information and unloading their stock onto the stock market. And there was an investigation by the United States government and over 20 lawsuits that were brought. And after doing all this work and succeeding, Malcolm decided not to pay us at all for our work. And I called him on several occasions and asked him if he would pay, or if he had a dispute, if he would sit down with me and talk about it. And he said no, he just didn't want to pay without really giving any good reason. So unfortunately, we had to sue him.
It wasn't the first time Glazer had been sued for unpaid bills, but this case never reached court. At the 11th hour, he settled, agreeing to pay 85% of the fees.
If you want to draw a lesson from our experience, get the quid from Malcolm Glazer up front. Be very cautious in your business dealings. You're dealing with a gentleman who's a very smart, very sly businessman, and just know that you're playing with a professional. That's all. Just as if you were sitting across the table from someone and playing chess with a professional. You're playing with a pro, so be on guard.